Hello and welcome to Toke Signals TV, episode number 19, where we bring you the biggest in cannabis and hemp news every week. I'm Steve Elliott, your host. I'm editor of TokeSignals.com, and I'll be guiding you through the news. After that is, we take a look at our bud pick of the week. We have been showing you some pictures of a Thai Kush plant that I just finished out. She is very good looking. You see here the finished product. She's been drying a week now. This Thai Kush was flowered for 11 weeks. She took her time under 320 watts of LED power. That was a 200 watt saucer at the top, plus 6 20-watt LED tubes running up and down the sides. And if that sounds like I'm running a Phototron, yes I am. Let's do the news, shall we? In Washington State, of course, we are rolling out here I-502 recreational legalization law. And as part of that, we are unfortunately seeing more marijuana DUI blood tests being performed by the Washington State Patrol. Now, this is one thing that I'm sorry to have been right about. I did predict this. Give law enforcement officers a bright line, and they are definitely going to use it. When Washington State voters last year approved the state's marijuana legalization law, Initiative 502, they didn't just legalize up to an ounce for adults and for state stores to sell it to them. They also voted into law a strict rule against driving under the influence of cannabis, written into the language of I-502. Law enforcement themselves now admit that they are giving a lot more blood tests for marijuana since I-502 passed. And it's no wonder, because it gave them a bright line, 5 nanograms per milliliter of blood, over which drivers are, per se, considered guilty of driving under the influence of cannabis. Never mind that 5 nanograms per milliliter is not associated with impairment, according to science. Until the passage of 502, officers had to prove actual impairment in Washington State if a driver fought his or her DUI marijuana case in court. They don't have to do that anymore. Now they just have to prove that your blood THC level is 5 nanograms per milliliter or more. When you give law enforcement a shiny new tool like that, don't ever doubt that it will be utilized. And that is why it is really unfortunate that marijuana blood tests don't measure impairment at all, but they simply measure the level of active THC in the blood. Many heavy cannabis users, such as medical marijuana patients, wake up unimpaired in the morning with blood levels higher than 5 nanograms per milliliter, thus are technically never legally able to drive. I-502 apologists last fall advanced the theory that officers wouldn't really enforce the marijuana DUI portion of the law unless people were quote-unquote really impaired. It's never a good idea to assume cops won't enforce the law. These new Washington State Patrol numbers put the lie to the idea that they wouldn't enforce it. Almost half of the drivers who were forced into a blood draw by state troopers and who tested positive for THC were under even the paltry 5 nanogram per milliliter limit. More drivers have been testing positive for marijuana, yes, since Washington legalized last year, according to the State Patrol's new figures. But that doesn't mean that the legalization of cannabis caused a sudden rash of driving while high. And that's according to Washington State Patrol spokesman Bob Calkins. Troopers are now looking harder for drivers who have been smoking marijuana. We're testing blood that we didn't test before, Calkins said. In the first 6 months of 2013, 745 drivers tested positive for marijuana, according to the Washington State Patrol Crime Lab. Since there are typically about 1,000 positive pot tests on drivers in a full year, that means cannabis DUIs in the first 6 months of 2013 have gone up close to 50% compared to previous years. But since the overall number of impaired driving cases handled by the Washington State Patrol doesn't appear to have risen this year, it looks to be on track to hit the rough annual average of 20,000 cases. That could mean that some drivers are using marijuana instead of alcohol before getting behind the wheel. And that, of course, is a lot less dangerous. The WSP's crime lab ran these numbers this month and turned them over to the federal government. This was in the wake of a Department of Justice announcement in August that the feds will not sue to block implementation of marijuana legalization in Washington and Colorado, as long as these two states meet 8 federal law enforcement goals, including combating driving while high. Driving under the influence of marijuana is generally charged as a gross misdemeanor in Washington, punishable by up to a year in jail. Offenders must serve at least 1 day in jail for a first offense. Of those 745 drivers who tested positive for marijuana in the first 6 months of 2013, a slight majority, 420, yes, that's really the number, tested above the legal limit of 5 nanograms per milliliter. In 2011, 506 drivers tested above 5 nanograms all year long. In 2012, 609 drivers did. Allison Holcomb, the American Civil Liberties Union lawyer who wrote I-502, admitted the possibility that certain demographics are being unfairly targeted for marijuana blood tests, and said she'd be keeping tabs on the situation. Also in Washington state, another story having to do with the implementation of legalization under I-502, the state got more applications for growing marijuana than for selling it in the first week of eligibility for application. Based on that first week's worth of applications, Washington state has more than enough people interested in getting licenses to grow marijuana. But so far, there are applications for fewer than half of the number of cannabis retail stores allowed by state regulations. The application period for those who want to grow, process, or sell marijuana in Washington state under the implementation of Legalization Measure Initiative 502 began on November 18th. Applications are filed with the State Department of Revenue, which processes the requests before sending them on to the Washington State Liquor Control Board. The Liquor Control Board is in charge of implementing and regulating recreational marijuana sales. On Tuesday, it released the names and locations from the 922 applications filed during the first week. You can find a link to get that complete list on the Hemp News story. Washington State gets more applications for growing marijuana than for selling it. The board said it will grant up to 334 retail licenses statewide, with limits in each county. So far, 158 applications have been received for those 334 retail licenses. No applications at all have been received so far from 14 counties in Washington. The amount of space allowed to be devoted to growing marijuana statewide has been limited to 2 million feet by the board, 2 million square feet. Submitted applications just from the first week alone for marijuana growing licenses total almost 6.8 million square feet. So more than 3 times the amount that they are allowing to happen as far as growing has been applied for. The Liquor Control Board could hold a lottery to decide who gets the growing licenses, since the demand is greater than the supply, or it could reduce the amounts that some licensees can grow after all the applications are reviewed, and that process is expected to take until March. The state will be accepting marijuana business applications through December 19th. In Colorado, they're also rolling out and implementing their legalization law, Amendment 64, also approved by state voters there last November. But it looks like the Denver City Council is trying to recriminalize in a way, because they have banned visible pot smoking in yards and on balconies. Ignoring opposition from marijuana advocates and civil libertarians, the Denver City Council last Monday night voted to ban people from smoking legal marijuana in private yards or on balconies if the activity can be seen from the street or from the sidewalk. The City Council passed the measure on a 7-5 vote on the first reading. Everyone up here tonight is going to make some enemies. Councilman Charlie Brown, normally a strong advocate of regulating marijuana, told his fellow city council members. "I can't support it," Brown said. "I believe in individual property rights." "Government can't solve all these problems," Brown said, "and neither can our police department. I would rather see police going after serious drug problems than playing security patrol for the Stepford Wives," one opponent of the ordinance told the council. But a parent who favors the ordinance claimed that allowing residents to smoke cannabis in their front yards undermines our conversations with our children by making it appear okay. "But, I thought it was legal now. It's ridiculous that people can drink on their own property, but are prohibited from smoking marijuana in the same locations," according to cannabis advocate Mason Tvert, a major backer of Amendment 64, the legalization measure approved last year by Colorado voters. "There's no reason to put into place a virtually unenforceable law," Tvert said. He said the way to handle this issue is through nuisance abatement laws or homeowner association rules. "The answer is to allow communities to handle this like they do everything else," he said. The Denver City Council is expected to give final approval to the measure next Monday night. In Arizona, a Democratic lawmaker there wants to legalize marijuana. The second-ranking Democrat in the Arizona House, saying legislation is better than a voter initiative, wants to legalize marijuana for adult recreational use. Cannabis advocates are gearing up to put the issue on the 2016 ballot, pointed out Representative Ruben Gallego of Phoenix. But he wants the issue debated through the legislative process. Gallego said that lawmakers are better suited to come up with a comprehensive plan without unforeseen problems than our advocates who are circulating petitions. The Arizona Constitution sharply limits tinkering by the legislature with voter-approved initiatives. Such rules were passed after lawmakers twice gutted medical marijuana laws approved by the voters before voters finally sealed the deal in 2010. Gallego believes, therefore, that any mistakes included in voter initiatives could be difficult to correct after the fact. Representative Eddie Farnsworth, a Republican from Gilbert, Arizona, while admitting that attitudes around marijuana are softening in the state and elsewhere, said he's still opposed to legalization. He said just because voters were in favor of it is no reason for him and others who were against cannabis legalization to vote for it. Heck, I don't see much reason for voters to elect Farnsworth again either. Gallego said he's never tried marijuana, but one good reason to legalize it is the expense of jailing people for possession. Prosecutors use the fact that someone had marijuana when arrested for other crimes to boost their prison sentences, according to the lawmaker. Those caught with marijuana also face other problems, like losing eligibility for federal Pell College grants and student loans, he said. Gallego's bill would allow those 21 and older to possess up to an ounce of marijuana and to grow up to 5 cannabis plants. Other details, such as where it could be bought and sold, are still being worked out. In Massachusetts, a former congressman there wants to open 3 medical marijuana dispensaries. Former U.S. Representative William D. Delahunt wants to get into the medical marijuana business. Delahunt is a former congressman there from Massachusetts and a longtime Norfolk County District Attorney, and he's filed applications with the state to open dispensaries in Plymouth, Taunton, and Mashpee. Delahunt said that his past experience as both a district attorney for 21 years and as a member of Congress make him especially well suited to operate medical marijuana dispensaries. He represented the former 10th Congressional District in Massachusetts for 7 terms, from 1997 to 2011. Massachusetts has received 100 applications to open dispensaries. The law limits the number to 35 stores statewide, including at least 1 per county, but no more than 5 per county. The Massachusetts Department of Health last Friday released information on the 100 applications for dispensaries it has received, including the applicants' names and the cities and towns in which they want to open stores. Massachusetts medical marijuana law requires that all dispensaries be run as nonprofits. The state will announce its final selections on January the 31st for the 35 available licenses, according to spokesman David Kibbe. Representative Delahunt, now CEO of a nonprofit called Medical Marijuana of Massachusetts, said he has a team of medical professionals, law enforcement personnel, and addiction specialists to help him create his dispensaries. We want to do this with the highest standards possible so we can establish a gold standard, if you will, across the state of Massachusetts, Delahunt said. Massachusetts voters last year approved a ballot question to allow medicinal use of marijuana by patients with debilitating illnesses and authorization from their doctors. For the second phase of the dispensary application process, prospective operators needed to file a site-specific application with a letter of support from the community where the proposed facility will be located. In the United States, a new organization called Parents for Pot is fighting the stigma against marijuana users with families. Parents who use marijuana, even those who use it medicinally in the United States, face a lot of judgments and can sometimes even lose custody of their children. Parents for Pot is this new group. It's based in Northern California, and it's fighting the stigma surrounding the subject. The new group has a Facebook page. The link is on the Hemp News story, and plans to launch a website. And next on the agenda is forming a board of directors and then advocating specific legislation. What we aspire to do is change the way people understand and talk about cannabis in our community, said organizer Mickey Martin, the author of Medical Marijuana 101 and founder of a company which produces cannabis-infused medibles. Martin is the father of 2 boys. Martin, in 2007, faced federal charges related to his medibles company, Tainted Inc., eventually being sentenced to probation for marijuana manufacturing and distribution charges that could have gotten him a decade in prison. There are many patients who lose their freedom or whose children lose their freedom every day to these policies and laws. And as a society, we sit by and watch, Martin said. It's not okay anymore. We are likely better parents than many because one of the positive attributes of cannabis is its calming properties, Martin said. We are neighbors, friends, family members, and the guy who works at your local Starbucks. We are not criminals, and we are certainly not bad parents. Down in Florida this week, a bit of a strange story. A couple there accidentally brought home 11 pounds of marijuana after a trip to Louisiana. The husband and wife carried the weed on a 900-mile trip before getting back home to Key Largo, Florida, at which point they finally found it inside 2 mysterious suitcases. And instead of throwing a party at that point, the easily alarmed couple called the sheriff's department. This could have been really bad, said Monroe County Sheriff Sergeant Al Ramirez. These people were traveling all over with this stuff in their truck. If they had been pulled over with it, they could have wound up in jail, and their truck may have been seized. Well, Sheriff, maybe it shouldn't be against the law to start with, eh? It all began back in July when an unidentified package showed up at one of the couple's rental properties in Louisiana. The husband instructed a housekeeper to ship it back to UPS. The cleaning lady did return the box, but it was later shipped back to the rental again, and she put it inside, the husband told a deputy. When the couple took a trip to check on their vacation properties in Louisiana, the box was still there. So they opened the box and found inside it 2 locked blue suitcases. Thinking it was lost luggage being returned to someone, they threw the bags in their truck. They said they planned to deal with them later, according to law enforcement. They finally decided to cut the locks off the suitcases upon arriving home in Florida, and they discovered inside sealed bags full of marijuana in each of the 2 suitcases. At that point, they called the sheriff's office, which said the marijuana has been confiscated and will be destroyed. There's a story that you don't want to miss this week on Toke Signals before we go. It details a 2012 study which shows that cannabis is linked to better brain function in bipolar patients. And this probably explains why so many bipolar patients have found it to be an effective medication. This 2012 study shows that bipolar patients with a history of marijuana use have better neurocognitive function than those who have never used cannabis. You want to check that story out on tokesignals.com. Cannabis linked to better brain function in bipolar patients. I hope you have a wonderful week and that you will choose to come back and join us for Toke TV again next week. Until then, I hope you stay lifted.